So, Fred, when did you first come across the idea of magic?
It depends on how you see magic. I mean,
Well, how you see magic.
Well, to be honest, I would say that the first time I encountered something that I would call some kind of magic was when my mother found Jesus in the early 80s.
Oh, right, okay.
And yeah, and we got involved in all this Christian stuff, this religious movements, and there were praying, and there were crosses, and
Right.
and all of that. So I would say that, you know, that's a kind of magic too, even if
Oh,
I
it is. Yeah. And
agree on it, yeah.
did that come from, like, was it atheistic before then? Was there no belief? Was like a sudden change to severe Christianity, or how did that work?
Well, my mother was a severe atheist. Really,
okay.
She was. I mean, she traveled to Soviet Union, and she was hardcore in every way possible. But she had some problems and found Jesus, which was very, very good actually, because she got sober.
Right.
So I'm fine with that, you know.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until much longer later. I mean, when a friend gave me the Satanic Bible.
Right.
And by Anton LaVey, and the first time I read it, I liked it. It was fun, you know, but I also felt very much late 60s self-help stuff, you know, pretty traditional. And then I read it again, and I read it again, and there was some part of me there who suddenly realized that I don't have to believe in God to believe in magic.
Right. Yes.
So that's something LaVey taught me a lot, because first I was very much into the more psychological form of magic, lesser magic, for example,
yes,
you know, manipulation, how to behave, and how to, and it kind of merged into something else, a belief, you can say, in something greater, whatever it is. I still
like
find
greater in a supernatural sense, or just in a more kind of heightened psychological sense, or what's the greater?
Both, I would say.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I had periods when I was younger when I absolutely was against all kinds of supernatural stuff.
Sure.
All kinds.
Yeah.
Everything, you know, hard, which I probably got from my mother when she was younger, you know.
Yes,
and my father still, by the way. But as I grew older, I kind of started to reflect on myself and how I looked at the world around me and myself, and came to that conclusion that there is something else. There is this. It has many names: magic, ether, whatever. There's something I can affect.
Yeah. So what age were you when you first read the Satanic Bible? Like, what kind of era is that? Or?
It was in my 20s. I don't remember I mean, I'm 42 now.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact age, but
Right.
I was deep in a very self-loathing period, and my friend gave me the Satanic Bible.
Right.
Yeah.
And was it like, let me say, was it a complete shock, someone giving you something like that? Like, what was your kind of feeling around Satan and, you know, the satanic type thing? Were you aware that it was more than just like a kind of reaction? Well, I suppose it's mostly a reaction to Christianity, but were you aware of what it was, LaVeyan Satanism?
Not really. I don't think I was totally aware that it was that kind of individualism, this kind of self-love, self-respect that he dealt with. But, you know, I never, even as a child, considered myself a Christian. I always had a quite big... I had a distance to it all the time, because I felt I really didn't belong there for several reasons. So LaVey for me was mostly the guy with a cool cape and devil's horn that showed up in popular culture.
Yeah.
Someone to laugh at or laugh with. But it struck me, especially after reading the first half of the Satanic Bible, that there was something else. The second half didn't attract me as much. I didn't understand it. It's filled with rituals.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
and
Yeah.
I didn't really see that. And I'm very deeply rooted in popular culture, in horror movies,
Yes,
and
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So I think that's why I got very attracted to LaVey from the beginning, because he kind of belongs in that sphere of culture.
Sure, yeah. So you've come across it, and you've read it, you've enjoyed it. Did you start doing rituals at that point, or you said you weren't really getting the ritual element to it? What did it look like, having read the book a couple of times? What did it look like practically? What were you doing? Like, was it just psychological tricks? What was going on there?
I would say from the beginning it was mostly psychological tricks. I remember a very simple trick, which seems so obvious now and silly actually when I look back at it. But I read a news article about an acquaintance of mine who had been in prison for fraud.
Okay.
Nice guy. But when he came out, he talked about it in the newspaper, and they took a photo of him standing in the middle of the street in this small town we were living in.
Okay.
And whenever I met him afterwards, he was always walking in the middle of the street. And it struck me that this was some kind of lesser magic, that you kind of take front stage in your environment,
right,
and you
yes.
And that was it sounds pretty obvious and maybe not so powerful now, but kind of it was a hint of how I started to behave myself through the help of LaVey's texts, of course. But then it turned more into a very, very deep mindset, that to be able to be the person I want to be, I need to follow through this. I need to do this without shame,
yes.
Or without feeling silly or whatever. And this took me some years to dealt with, because I also understood that which is in magic and chaos magic a lot, that you shouldn't really, you do something and then you shouldn't focus on it so much. You should kind of forget it.
Yeah.
So it took me a couple of years just to learn these small tiny tricks, how to deal with myself, and then kind of just let it come naturally. I didn't focus on it anymore. I didn't see myself as this, hey, I'm a Satanist. Sometimes I do that, of course, still, but
you have to. It's the law.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, it's it's part of the image. It's fine. So in my case, there was I kind of just, like I said before, I kind of merged the philosophy into my life slowly.
Yeah. So I think it might be good at this point, without putting you too much on the spot, that if you could tell people who don't know about this, what would be the difference between lesser magic and greater magic? Like, there is a definite distinction in LaVeyan Satanism. So
yeah, in lesser magic, it's like a psychological game. You use manipulation, which don't in my eyes don't have to be rude or disturbing or anything. It could be that you choose the right words. You dress in a certain way. You wear a ring that people might see, might not see, but says something about you. You affect people in some way and the reality around you. In greater magic, you use more advanced rituals or magical objects, and really set an intention for something to happen, to change reality in how you want it to be. That's how I see it anyway, and that's how I think that's a quite simple way to see it, at least.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I always found it interesting that there was, particularly after LaVey died and stuff like this, that there was a real attempt to try and take magic out of LaVey and Satanism. Like it was like, is it Gilmore? Is that his name?
Yes,
yeah.
Peter Gilmore. Yeah.
He really doesn't seem to be into magic at all. Like he's into like the very atheistic, loves the aesthetic, all of that thing. But there does seem to be, like, before he wrote the Satanic Bible, he was having people around at his house every week from meetings where he would talk about the occult, and about magic and superstitious stuff and all that. So, do you think he actually believed in actual magic, or do you think he just thought it was psychological, or what's your thoughts?
I've been thinking about that a lot. I remember the first year when I mentioned LaVey to people, there were many who directly said con man or a hoax or whatever. But then again, if you just present a philosophy or a magical system that you yourself believe in, I even if it is a construction just to fool people, I still think it can work out as a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think LaVey, who obviously loved the attention, went into this whole individualistic satanic thing with the goal to get attention. I'm very, very sure. I mean, he was a showman. He was,
sure.
But because he also withdrew a lot from public during the 70s and of course up until he died, and focused on his own private life and writing, I think he had the realization somewhere that this works. This works for me at least.
Yes, yeah.
As an answer, I think he believed in magic.
Spooky magic.
Spooky magic. Yeah, it was his his way of dealing with stuff.
What's your thoughts around, say, that Michael Aquino stuff, that he would kind of, seems like in a sense is the polar opposite of Peter Gilmore, in that he went way into the woo, very much into it, whereas Peter went the other way.
I think he. I mean, what I remember, this happened in the 70s, the where he broke from LaVey and that kind of. I think he probably got a bit frustrated over LaVey's own personal style and close knit little society he had around him, and be strong and independent and everything. Maybe he was also affected by the society's view on LaVey, and that by itself became a sensitive thing if he wanted to go more into magic and more into the deep occult. So he maybe felt that it was good to distance himself from LaVey. I'm not sure. I think also it can have to do with both having very big egos. I feel also that the LaVey was more liberal in his views in general.
Right.
On other people, even if he could seem very conservative. Everything I've read also points that he was extremely liberal. It's just that he did his own thing and he just accepted it. With the now I lost his name.
Aquino.
Feels more. Maybe I'm wrong. Feels more judgmental towards others.
Yeah, and I suppose because he has the kind of military kind of background to him, probably a bit more regimental, a bit more about rules, that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But so it's an interesting type thing that, when you look at, particularly one thing that most people look at, and say Satanism as well, that you can't believe in Satan if you don't believe in God and stuff like that. And it's like people don't understand. Well, don't really believe in Satan either. So it's that. So can you talk a bit about the actual what the Satan figure is in Satanism?
Satan is a role model, I would say.
Okay.
He's the rebel, the enlightened one, the one who sees through hypocrisy. He thinks critical and at the same time is having a lot of fun. which I think is a good combination.
Yeah.
And I mean, we all know where, I mean, the angel Lucifer, who obviously just was very, very tired of what God did up there and decided to do something about it, and therefore he was cast out. So for me, at least, and I think many others Satanists, Satan is a strong symbol for individualism and pleasure. You know, I think it's as simple as that.
Yeah. So kind of anti-tribalism, more individualistic.
Exactly.
Less conservative. Allow people to be who they want to be, rather than conform to family or society pressures or stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember from church when I was a child how I didn't understand. I couldn't comprehend why people didn't like the devil more, because, to be honest, Jesus seemed like a nice guy, but pretty boring. The devil had fun. Okay, he was torturing people and all that kind of stuff in the arts, but he still had a smile on his face. There were beautiful people around him. There were good food. There were all this. So, there wasn't really suffering in that way. There was like some kind of. I mean, I guess the church wanted people to feel guilt somehow when they ate good or fucked around or whatever.
Well, it's certainly it's a control. Like it's that whole thing of is well, maybe in the early church it was like a kind of, don't eat pigs because lots of people are dying when they eat pigs, so don't do that. So I would hope that an awful lot of these rules came from originally a good place. That it was tried. Family. It's good to have a family. It's let's encourage that. But then when it turns into that's all you can do, that's the only rule, then I think it becomes that bit more insidious and a bit more. That's where you need the kind of rebellion against that.
Yeah, I mean, all this. I visited Warsaw recently. I went to the National Museum, and they have a fantastic exhibition of old Polish religious art.
Okay.
And the first thing you see when you come into the first hall is 3 sculptures of Jesus hanging on the cross, and he's bleeding from every hole in his body, and it's like torture porn. It's probably the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. And I can imagine people coming into the church or wherever they were at the time, looking at Jesus and thinking, oh, he suffered so much for me now, so I have to behave. It's a kind of mind control. It's
like the Passion of the Christ, the film itself, is the most violent film you will ever see in your life, bar none.
I've seen it once, and I have nothing against religious movies or Christian movies. I watched too many of them. But that one, I felt I can't watch this again. This is nasty.
Yeah, it's a nasty film. But I mean, intentionally so, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
So one question that I always kind of find interesting about, say, left-hand path or Satanism and stuff like that is, where does the concept of evil enter in? Because in Christianity, obviously, you have the figurehead or you have the symbol of Satan as the person who is evil. Whereas in Satanism, there's kind of a blame put on, say, Jehovah or, Christianity itself rather than an actual entity. But there obviously is evil in the world. There obviously is, people do terrible things. Nature itself seems to do terrible things, at least from our perspective. And where then does the whole notion of evil come into Satanism if you've stolen the symbol for evil and have changed the kind of appreciation of that?
Well, from my point of view, and I hope I don't sound like a psychopath, of course I see stuff that would be considered evil or bad, and stuff that I consider good or whatever. But I still feel very neutral in the question of what is good and evil, because in the end it's still from the perception of the person who sees good or evil. I mean, what's good for me can be bad for you, and the opposite. which is okay. It's a horrible way of thinking, of course, because when you see someone torturing another one, you know directly that this is a bad person. But I try to set myself in that person's mind, which might be brainwashed or whatever, and realize that this person don't see this as an evil thing or a bad thing. He sees this as something completely morally nice.
Right. Yeah. Or correct or allowable.
Or correct. Of course. Yeah.
Well, I suppose it comes to that thing of that Hitler didn't see himself as the bad guy.
No.
That.
I know. I know. It's a tricky thing. I fully understand that, but I still also feel that I have of course a personal level of morale that I find is very, very decent. But I also try to put myself in other people's mind and try to understand why they're doing certain things.
So would you think that morality then is strictly subjective and personal, and that there's no inherent morality in existence? Say, like, is it just perspective?
It's just perspective, yes.
Yeah.
Which, before anyone get angry, doesn't mean I condone any kind of violence or war or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep that view on basically everything, and then I can have my own personal reactions to it. But
sure, yeah.
But I mean, it's like when someone do something good, they go out. They go to some poor country. They'll help out there. They send doctors or they help an old lady over the street. Even when you go to the core of that, it's about ego. They might not admit it themselves, but even doing a good thing is deep down a very primitive thing, because it stimulates your ego. You know deep inside that I did something good.
Yeah. Well, it's that idea that there's no such thing as a selfless act. Because in doing something, you still get the reward of having done a sneaky, selfless act.
So I mean, I try to encourage people. Don't be ashamed if you don't feel. If you do something good, don't be shy about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you. If you feel good from it, and you do something good to someone else, that's perfectly fine. I don't.
So it's like basically what you say when people kind of do something, but they're a bit of facing, and you're pretending they didn't do it. It's just kind of false. Oh no! It's just poor me. I didn't do anything. It's a form of virtue signaling, of course, which has become such a big thing these days on the internet, or in life in general, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Being that the internet has taken up more and more of our life. So you're just to go back to, I suppose, to your own life story a bit. This your early 20s, you're introduced to Satanism, the anti-Levite and stuff like that. So when you did it develop further into more kind of left-hand path stuff? Did you stick with that? Did you have a Wicca period? Didn't you suddenly? Did you have a neo-pagan kind of summer or anything like that?
I don't have any, very distinct periods, I would say. Okay. I have always been quite self-reflective, self-analyzing person. So through my development as a Satanist and magician or occultist, or how you want to call it, has mostly come through my writing, because I write a lot, sometimes silly stuff, sometimes stuff that I feel really proud of, but I feel I need to get it out because it's writing is magic. I can
for sure
get my thoughts down in letters and words.
So like the thing about writing and why it's definitely magic is because we say things like we're doing a spell. The whole thing of grimoire comes from grammar. So it's like it's the whole kind of, and even in TV shows, like you have people who rhyme, and there's the whole poetry of spells and stuff like that. So writing is certainly I would say is a huge magical act.
But then again, I would say if I have any phases, it would probably be how I dress.
Okay.
How I want my self-image to be towards others. I've had my periods of completely black clothes. So, and I have periods where I feel that I had to act colder or tougher or whatever.
Okay.
But I also land. I've been trying out.
Was
this.
that a deliberate kind of like say in a kind of a satanic way of deliberately taking on personalities as a kind of a lesser magic thing, or even a chaos magic thing, where like a paradigm shift or a belief as a tool? Is that what you like? Were you deliberately doing that, or was it a reaction to what was going on in your life, and that was kind of your coping mechanism?
I think it was a deliberate choice, basically. Cause I've noticed that I can I kind of build upon myself in how I dressed at the time. I noticed that I acted differently just by dressing in black, or dressing which feels quite teenage, I guess, but it was a phase that I needed.
Sure.
Also, long coats, jewelry. Sometimes I wear a lot of rings still, but right now I have this nickel allergy, which fuck things up for me. So that's so satanic.
Yeah. Allergies. Oh, hail Satan.
But I have photos of me where I was younger with this black coats and long hair.
Right.
And
did you do the eyeliner, all that stuff?
No, I didn't, but because when I was younger, I looked like this angel in my face. I looked I looked very holy in some kind of weird way. But during the last years, I would say, even the last 5 years or 6 years, 10 years, I've found myself, you can say. I've landed in a lot of insights about myself and how to use magic and magical thinking, and I'm not sure, to be honest, where I'm defining myself as a magical system, etc. I would say closest is chaos magic, because I'm a little bit too undisciplined for rituals and all that kind of stuff. Not saying I'm not doing them from time to time, but
so did you, like, because you said you didn't really like the second half of the Satanic Bible because of the ritual stuff. Did you get into ritual then at some point, or did that appear in your life, or like, do you have a ritual chamber in your house or anything like that?
In front of me at the table, I have a concrete skull with a candle on top. I specifically ordered it from a person I did a TV show at once, because I loved her skull so much. Can you do one of these for me? And I have this tiny little altar, to be honest, with this skull on. And I'm not using the skull as some kind of for me, the skull reminds me once again about the mystery of death, the mystery of existence, which I feel I need to be reminded of. So that's my little shrine, little altar. I'm not sure my husband sees it like that. He probably sees it as a nice thing to have on the table. But he also uses it for incense, and so it's become a place where we do our stuff. And when I do tarot, for example, I do it in front of this. I use the flame to focus on, to meditate. So yeah, that I would say is the ritual objects I use that seems more traditionally ritualistic. Then I collect stuff. I have so much stuff in this apartment. You can't, you can't even imagine how much stuff I have. If it's
Right.
books or movies or toys or stones or coins, and all of these objects are magical to me. All of them
Right,
say
yeah.
something.
So they're
and I
like
guess-
totems in a sense, I suppose.
Oh, absolutely. It's
Yeah,
a total environment, as LaVey would say.
Yeah.
Because I want to be everywhere in the apartment and still feel them somehow. I want to look at them and be reminded of certain things.
But there was no, like, you weren't going around doing a satanic mass every Friday, or getting out on the robes and sacrificing goats or anything like this. No.
No. I that's not. No, it's not. That's not my thing really. Me and a friend have done some a magician friend have done some rituals together, more based on chaos magic, because he don't define himself as Satanist, but
Okay.
which has worked out splendidly. If I can boost myself here. So that's I guess is the closest to something bigger. And a couple of years ago, I'm kind of embarrassed by it, but I did a couple of month-long sigil ritual where I was trying to affect the outcome of something very big in Sweden. I was probably not alone in doing this. I'm sure other people, and it went in our direction.
Okay.
But I, when I look at it now, I feel that maybe I shouldn't have done it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because of other things. There's.
Well, that's magic for you. It'll always
Yeah,
get
I
you in
know.
trouble.
It's but you learn. I'll probably write it about it sometime.
Right.
When I've maybe in a year or two, when I got some more distance to
When you won't get in trouble for it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I told about my ritual to a ceremonial.
Ceremonial.
I'm Swedish,
It's okay.
magician, who was I felt was quite upset.
Oh, okay.
Even if it went the way even he wanted.
Right.
So it was I kind of stayed away from larger projects like that since then, because
Right.
I feel that my work with magic is more self-centric. It's more about me than affecting
The
others.
larger, yeah.
The larger, yeah.
That's what I definitely feel about LaVeyan Satanism, is that it's almost, as you say, it's like a self-help type thing. It is mostly about self-transformation, self-development, self-empowerment, rather than trying to change the world. And there's kind of a feeling in it that kind of leave the world alone. Let the fools persist in their folly. Kind of, that kind of way. So I do understand that thing. I've always found magic, for the most part, to be about, I suppose, the alchemy of trying to change and grow as a person, rather than trying to get the stuff. Because you can, there's nothing wrong. That's not a moralistic thing. Get the stuff if you want the stuff. That's absolutely fine. So you mentioned tarot. So when did you start getting into that, or was that an offshoot of hanging around with magicians, or how did that enter your life?
It's quite new, the tarot stuff. It's like maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
And before that, I had a quite skeptical view on tarot, because in my eyes it was, they pulled the card and they said, you will meet a tall, dark stranger and get 5 kids, that kind of stuff.
You will travel overseas.
Yes. And when a very, very, very good friend introduced me to it, he sat down, he brought a tarot and sat down and truly explained it to me.
Yeah.
Because you have all these tutorials on the internet and books, but I often need someone to just show me.
Sure. Yes. Yeah, I get that.
To understand it. And it kind of opened up my worldview to a degree I could never expect, actually.
Okay.
there's a couple of very important things that happened in my life. One, that I met my husband. One, that I fell ill a year ago, which was fantastic. It was it was great because it pushed me in the right direction.
Yes, yeah.
And tarot is without a doubt one of the most important things I've ever encountered in mostly dealing with myself, of course.
Right. Yeah. And are you doing it as a kind of a part working like through the major arcana, or are you doing it as fortune telling, or how are you utilizing the tarot? Like, what are you doing with it?
More how I should deal with things, not fortune telling.
Yes, yeah.
Like that. Yeah. I want the cards to tell me, okay, what paths should I go, or how should I think regarding certain things, because every time I use them, I find them to tell me things that I haven't thought about before.
Like getting a different perspective on your problem.
Yeah. It's I rarely recommend things to people, but I think people should take a closer look at tarot as a self-help magical object.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, how are you using it? What's your...
Well, my kind of approach to any of that kind of stuff is to it's not fortune telling. It's not trying to find out what events are going to happen. It's uncover a secret. Does she really hate me? Oh, none of that. It's like, how can I view this problem or this challenge or this thing from give me a different perspective that I wouldn't think, so that when you say you get the I don't know, the priestess or the emperor or whatever, you go, how would he approach this situation? What's his advice from this kind of thing? And try and kind of see it from a different angle, but all with the kind of understanding that it's to be taken with a grain of salt and not capital T truth. It's not divine writ. It's so it's and instantly, as soon as you do any kind of a reading, you've already changed the future because you've changed your knowledge and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But there is a trap you can fall into, and it's a thing I'm hesitant with. Why I don't get too much into astrology is because I definitely feel I would do that whole self-fulfilling prophecy with it, in that Thursday's going to be bad, so I'll make sure Thursday's bad. So if you get a reading and it says, oh, next Tuesday, wouldn't go near that. Invariably, next Tuesday is going to be terrible, because you're just all that. So I have to be very kind of careful about not being overly predictive, with, and not, I suppose in a sense, not take it too seriously, but take it seriously enough. Take it as serious as a conversation with a friend who's giving you advice. But like, not thinking your friend is God and knows all the answers either. That's kind of my approach to any of those type of things. Be it runes, tarot, pendulums, or whatever you want. But it definitely I'd be my main ones would be cards, and I love the bibliomancy, the book, opening at a random page. That seems to work very well. There seems to be a humor in that oracle decks or tarot decks can be quite serious. There's not as much humor in it, but you can get a humor from bibliomancy that you don't seem to get. A bit more smart-arsed, I suppose. Yeah.
Well, I feel that the cards can. If I get a very negative card for, if I, okay, how's this project gonna work out? And it's just, I just try to. No, I just feel that I'm pushing myself in the opposite direction. I don't, if it's
right. Yes, yeah.
That's basically myself telling myself to deal with it.
Yeah. And I think ultimately it is. Well, I don't know. I think ultimately it can only be really yourself telling yourself, particularly if you're doing your own reading, because like, what else could it be? I suppose. But I mean, maybe there is something a bit more woo to it, but I don't think there needs to be for it to be as useful as it seems to be. Is there any other kind of tools or anything you use, or do you use pendulums or any of that kind of stuff, or I don't know, runes or stuff like that? No.
I've sigil, as I mentioned earlier. I often do them quite very, very simple. a few times I do them with a whole, lit candle and everything, just to get. Sometimes I just scribble them down. I even, you have these digital sigils.
Sure,
you which I also found quite helpful. When you want to do a quick one. Yeah. I also use more as a, what to call it, because they have no practical use. I can't swing them or I have a series of coins made by a Danish prankster called Knut Langkov.
Okay.
He spent like 30-40 years in secret printing these coins, satanic coins, satanic coins, and hiding them in churches.
Oh, awesome.
He and according to his family, after he died, he said that no, he wasn't a Satanist or devil worshipper. He was an atheist. They wasn't really sure why he was doing this.
Right.
But I'm using these coins to don't let my ego go to me.
Okay.
Because if he could do this coins for 40 years without
bragging about it, I suppose.
Yeah, bragging about it, telling people about it. That's an amazing self-discipline.
Sure, for sure.
And I work in a business where ego is a lot. Everyone wants attention. Everyone wants to, be loved. And
you work in TV, isn't it, basically?
Yeah, television, commercial television, reality shows, etc.
Right. So a lot of ego going on there.
Oh yeah. And you find yourself in these often amazing gangs of people, but there can be some.
Why am I not surprised that there's a Satanist working in reality TV?
Let me tell you, it's the best lesson in human psychology you can get.
I can imagine.
It's absolutely. I've learned so much about people, and you also learn it in a more enhanced way because emotion gets a slightly bigger and larger.
Yes. Have you ever put a secret sigil on TV or anything like that? Have you managed to do stuff?
I worked. I've been working on several paranormal shows, which I love, and not this one I'm working on now, but the last one. I won't tell any names.
Yeah.
I often wore hidden pentagrams.
Oh, very cool! Very cool.
This is a very it's not such a dark show. It was mostly about angels and nice things and grandmas coming back and to give advices.
Everything is okay.
Yes. So I wanted somehow to give the audience and myself some kind of balance.
Sure.
If for me it worked. I'm not sure if it worked for anyone else, but for me, I kind of I could deal with it. Yeah. So I would say that's, but it's a good idea. Might do something like this in the future.
What about things like the Satanic Temple and stuff that's become very popular, and the new documentary Hail Satan? They're a very different type of Satanist than Levian Satan. Would you have any kind of what's your thoughts on them? I suppose is the question.
I was actually a member of the Swedish section of the Satanic Temple for a year.
Okay.
Yeah. Really, really nice people. They're super cute, all of them. But I also, it was when I published the first Homosatanis book, and I added that to their Facebook group.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, look at me, I've done this. I'm proud. And there was a woman who got so upset. She got she bought it and realized that it was inspired by LaVey, and she became so rude.
Oh wow!
And the moderators kind of sided with her, not with words, but it was me. I tried to be very polite back. And, you can think what you want. And that's fine. And that kind of made me. This is childish personal stuff in that way. So I decided, okay, there's no room for me in this. And then again, I'm not especially activist either. Of course, I have political opinions, but I'm looking at myself, I know that what I say and do regarding those things won't help anyone, basically.
Yeah.
So I just decided to move out of it and let them do their activism themselves, and that's fine. I have really nothing against it, but I'm also, I rather mind my own business when it comes to things. But if it works for them, it's fine. I'm happy for that.
Yeah, they certainly seem to be using the satanic symbol, or mostly the Baphomet symbol, as more a provocative thing than a symbol of self-discovery or person, all that stuff that Levine's thing, which is fine. And that, equally, it's a big enough symbol to to encompass all of these things. I did watch the documentary. I thought it was just okay. I mean, it was just kind of the Satan element of it needn't have been there, really. That's the kind of thing. But
I haven't seen it yet.
All right, okay, it's on all the places now. It was just on, I think it's on Amazon, it's on Netflix, all of those things.
Okay, I will check it out. I if I can do a recommendation, I really liked, maybe because I'm partial, Carl Abrahamsson's.
Oh yes, the new one. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah. Which for me also gave me a lot of confirmation what I thought earlier about LaVey, and hearing his friends and colleagues talk about him, and I really like it. It's not just because I know Carl. I honestly think it's a good
and there's stuff in it, footage I've never seen, and it's good. It's long too. It's not a kind of a short thing. It's an hour and a half or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 1 hour 45 minutes.
Something like that.
And Carl told me he could have made a 4-hour cut.
Right. Okay.
He had some ideas of even making a sequel with the material he had.
Well, hopefully he does.
Yeah, I would like to see it anyway. So.
You mentioned Homosatanis, your book, your first book. You've two now. Two Satan books. You've a couple of other books, I think, haven't you? You have a Swedish book as well. Talk to me about Homosatanis and that, I suppose, that nickname, that book, that kind of... Where did all that come from, and what was the idea behind all that?
The title came from me from absolutely nowhere.
Right.
The first title was actually Homosatanas.
All right.
Because I saw, and then I was kind of checking the grammar, the Latin grammar, and felt that Satanas is wrong, and I changed it to Satanis. So for a very short time, it was Satanas, and Satanis looks better, I think, and it works better.
Yeah.
It came to me after a terrible personal crisis, to be honest.
Okay, fair enough.
It was horrible. It was one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my career.
Okay.
So I worked at the project, and there was like chaos. There was like, how can they let people do this? How can they let people behave this? And no one wanted to take responsibility. So I did what no one else had done, basically, in Swedish television. I called the producer in the middle of the day and say, I'm taking the train home.
Okay.
Now. And I did that.
Right.
And they haven't hired me since then. Okay. That's fine. But after that, I spent like 3 hours out in nature. I was out in nature every day, thinking, okay, what did I do wrong? Did I try just to analyze the situation and the behavior, both from me and from those around. And I'm not easily offended, let me tell you that. Yeah. So I was kind of surprised by myself that I did it. So suddenly all these texts came out of me. I mean, it was pouring out.
Right.
It was like, it's like a flood. Everything. Yeah. Every thought I've ever had. And that's why the first book is quite... it goes in a lot of different directions. Sure. It goes both childhood memories and individualistic speeches, and it was. Yeah. But I also kind of felt that this belongs together. It needs to be in the same book. And so I wrote.
Were you originally doing it as a book, or was it a blog, or what? Or were you just doing it for yourself totally? And then you said, "I better publish this," or.
I started publish it on a site called Ello.
Oh yes,
which I later abandoned because
I think everyone abandoned it.
yeah, I did. I mean, it was a good place from the beginning, but so the first versions of the texts, many of them are there, and then I started to think, okay, I can do something else with this. I've published books before, but I was never happy with them. And suddenly I felt, okay, I have this mine of personal thoughts, and most of them I was quite happy with. So I just started to go through them and reread them and rewrite them and remove some which I felt was like, okay, Fred, you were an idiot when you wrote there, or you were raging about something. Okay, let's keep it down a bit. So no, the first thought wasn't to publish it as a book, but it kind of came to me after a couple of months after writing a lot of text that, okay, I can do something with this, and I could be basically I think the first one in Sweden to do something like that.
Right.
That's not as a, I hope, quite inspirational book behind the hints of bitterness I still feel there is in this first book from time to time, a little bit here and there. But that was also some kind of self analysis on myself, writing it and dealing with stuff. And I released it, and to my surprise, many, but not everyone, of course, many liked it. And
not everyone's gonna like it.
No, I know, it's horrible. I want them to love me. You know?
I know. I understand.
And now when I go back to it, I feel that, wow, I've actually grown a lot even since the first book.
Good. That's always good.
And even since I wrote the second book, I've felt, okay, I've changed a bit even since the second book. So it's, you know, it's flowing fast. My personal development in this, because.
So would you see it as very much a part of your kind of this is your growth as a person, that it's part of that kind of journey, more than just I'm writing books, you know, for people to read. It's how I'm developing as a human being.
Oh yeah. I'm writing for myself.
Yeah.
I had to really cut it out from my mind that I was writing for others, because I felt that if I do that, I will start censoring myself more. I will start.
Yes. Yeah.
I need to. This is my stuff, and if anyone wants to read it and if they like it, that's fine. You know.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm maybe. I have most of part 3 ready.
Basically. Oh, great.
But I still feel it's, you know, it's under development. It's a lot more philosophical. I mean, it's more. I won't say low key, but it's kind of myself landed in a lot of things. It's less rants and more. Deeper reflections.
Right. Yes. Yeah. So probably less about individual events and more about bigger picture stuff. Right.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. And that Homosatanis will be the last Homosatanis book. I feel.
Okay.
I feel.
Okay.
I will of course write other things, but I feel that this phase is over.
And then you're going to go back to dressing black and wearing eyeliner and rings.
No. You know, I've as you noticed, if you look at social media, I have striped shirts always nowadays, because when I was a child, I loved striped shirts, but I was also so very chubby.
Oh, right.
So you know, when you have striped clothes,
makes it look worse.
Yeah. And now when I lost a lot of kilos, I suddenly can wear them. So awesome. I will have it will be striped clothes for maybe even the cover of Homosatanis 3.
So this is your striped period.
Yeah.
So tell me, Fred, what does the immediate future and the long-term future hold for you? So you've a third book, but what's your plans? Have you anything further than that? Or are you taking each day as it comes? When I started writing the first Homosatanis, I also noticed that I was writing a lot of more fringy texts about consciousness and magic and the supernatural and conspiracies. And some of them ended up in the first Homosatanis, but I wrote even more for Homosatanis 2, which I decided to not have any of those in Homosatanis 2. So I have basically a complete book with those kind of texts. Nice.
Yeah. to be honest, I'm a little bit nervous to release it, because this will take an even deeper dive into my psyche and how I'm thinking about certain things. It's fine if people think I'm mad.
Yeah.
You know, that's perfectly fine. But there's
I
also...
think if your own art doesn't make you nervous, then you're not doing good art.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm trying to figure out a cool title for it basically now, and I think I know how the cover will look, but you know, I'm not stressing it. So that's, I would say, my next book project, to put
good.
that one together even before Homosatanis 3, so people are prepared for that.
So you can release that one and go, oh no, have a look at this. This is more your
I want to see all parts of me. But I also really trying to make myself as the go-to paranormal TV person.
Oh, brilliant! Sweden. Great.
Because I truly love this subject. I'm a little bit skeptical. Let's say I'm not skeptical. I'm very neutral.
Right.
You know,
right. Yeah.
Something happens or something not happens, I'm just whatever.
Whatever.
You know,
It's
so that's something I think I've set in motion during the last years or so, and I want to continue focusing on that. So we'll see what happens, but at the moment that's about it. And on a more legal note, I'm just waiting for the next mushroom season to start in Sweden. So
I understand. Microdosing has become the new craze. It's like everyone seems to be at it. I certainly, when you look at some of those Facebook, who's your man who does Facebook? What's his name? The guy who owns Facebook.
Oh, Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg, yeah. See him when he's been questioned. He's definitely on mushrooms. There's no question he's microdosing.
Yeah.
I know that stare from anywhere.
I saw an interview with Brad Pitt recently where he hinted that he was microdosing at that very moment also.
Yeah. Well, it's all about to become quite legal anyway. Canada has legalized it, and there's a couple of other places that are talking about doing it. So.
I mean, they can't stop me. It's gross everywhere here. So it's and I mean, I'm not denying that the work with psilocybin has been it's still a big part of my magical work and the personal work, which at the moment I'm very experienced with. And so I kind of hope that in the future or within the next 10 years it will be legalized to use it in Scandinavia or Sweden, so we can work more openly with it.
That's it, yeah. And I think it will be. That seems to be the way the tide is turning.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. I will put all your links. You have a Patreon as well that people can check out. You have the website, the Amazon links. We'll put all of them in the show description. But is there anything else you want to leave people with or say? Something profound, just, not putting any pressure on you, but come up with the most profound thing you've ever said in your life. Just right now.
It's so difficult to just do that on
on cue.
Yeah, exactly. I have to be on Twitter, to write something deep nowadays.
It's okay if you don't.
I can't come up with anything now.
Fine.
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I think the best way to end this is by saying, "Hail Satan!"
Hail Satan!